Happy Wednesday and welcome to another Brain Scratch update. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for joining us here today as we're talking about the Jonathan Cruz case again. Now, 2 weeks ago, we mentioned that a big civil trial was happening in this case. Of course, you might remember that the family lost Jonathan back in 2014 in a case that many find perplexing. However, those are the cases where a friend of mine steps in and tries to help the families. We are now welcoming Sheila Wysocki back to the channel, as well as one of her PIs, Danielle. Hello, ladies.
Hey, thank you for having us, John.
Anytime. And just to be clear about it, both of them did attend the trial, kind of helped in the trial, I guess, also in some way, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and Sheila in a very big way, but I understand Danielle also helped in a significant way as well. Let's start with the big news. What was the outcome?
Well, we won the trial, and the jury was asked for $129 million as a vindication or affirmation, and they gave $206 million to the family, almost $100 million more than we asked for.
Did you guys just hear jaws dropping and hitting the floor? I mean, that's unbelievable.
It was the moment you ask, I was looking for $1 just so we could get in front of a jury.
Yeah.
And Danielle was standing next to me. She's never been through a trial before. And to get to that moment from starting, this was her first case.
Yeah.
With me. And so she was crying so hard that I was like, I can't hear. So, but it was so shocking that it had to come to that, not the verdict, but the fact that we were standing there and this family was begging for someone to hear them and vindicate them. And they got it.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've been begging for years. I mean, it's 8 years at this point. Danielle, what was it like for you going through this whole trial experience?
Well, like Sheila said, it was the case that introduced me to Sheila. And so even though we've worked on other cases over the years, this one has just always had my heart in so many different ways. Going through the trial process, it was nothing and everything that I expected, and then some. And, it was never about the money.
Yes.
It's not about the money. It's about strangers, a jury, just acknowledging what the family knew all along.
Mm-hmm.
They would give up billions of dollars to have 5 more minutes with Jonathan. So it was a huge process, and I was glad to see the result that came.
I don't think you could say it better than that. They'd give that and more just for 5 more minutes with Jonathan. Danielle, were you at the PI experience?
I was. That's actually how I met Sheila in 2018.
Wow. Yeah. That's how I met Sheila as well. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You too.
Pulled a bunch of people together, and here we are years later.
Here we are.
So, okay, $206 million awarded. Is there really any expectation that the family is going to see that or any of it?
No.
Okay.
Not for me. I don't know if they have expectations, but I don't.
Yeah. And to your point, that's not what it's about.
No, it's about getting the attention of the district attorney and all the law enforcement people that did not do their jobs. And now they actually have a reason to do the job, because how embarrassing is it for everyone that $206 million was awarded?
Right. Yeah. Obviously, that jury was so clear about the outcome. And wouldn't you think that, I mean, we know that the level of proof is different at a civil trial.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Danielle, why don't you explain to John what you and I talked about earlier today?
Which time?
More than 51%.
Yeah, so there's a jury of 6, and 2 alternates, and they need 51%. So they need 5 out of the 6 jurors to decide that more likely than not, Jonathan was killed at the hands of Brenda.
Okay.
But we got a unanimous verdict.
But basically, there's an additional consideration because it was unanimous.
Right. Okay. So don't quote me on the legal stuff, because that's something I don't like and I don't understand. I want the law to follow what I like.
Yep. Absolutely. How long did the trial go on?
It was 3 days, Tuesday, and then we rested on Thursday. No, we rested on Friday. So it was 4 days.
Okay.
Yeah. It was one big day for Danielle and I, because our days, we got 2 to 4 hours of sleep every night. So I didn't even know what day it was.
Wow.
And I think it was Thursday that we were actually, the jurors stayed until about 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I think it was Thursday.
It was Thursday.
They were long days.
It was extremely long days. And based on what happened in court that day, we would go in and make, all the planning was thrown out the window. You had to adjust based on anything the defense did or said, or anything we noticed that Brenda reacted or didn't react to, anything along that line, or just suggestions from my crowdsourcers that were there. There were people from, the PI experience and other places, the people that follow the podcast.
Wow. That's amazing. Now, as long as those days were for you guys, of course, I've always heard that these trials are extremely tough on families, and you're essentially taking them back through these details almost in slow motion. Is that accurate?
Yes and no. We made it a point that the family went to bed. They went to bed. And as far as what happened with the families, I wrote, when I flew back home on the plane, I wrote about the experience and the families and what they go through, because a $206 million verdict is amazing. But people don't know what goes into that. And I'll say this about Pam Cruz. I never had her argue with anything that I asked her to do. She followed every direction, and the outcome is obvious. I mean, I don't ask moms to do things because they're painful or, I want them to relive it. I know what impact it's going to have. And so she's probably one of the few moms that did everything. And as far as the dad goes, I walk into a room that he's in and you can see his face change. He cannot be in a room with me because I bring pain to him every time he's in a room. So I try to stay away from him because I know he's reliving that moment, and what I represent to him is that moment.
Yeah. I did have a chance to meet him once, and I'll never forget that moment because I knew how brave he was being to even be open to that and to be speaking about it in that way. Oh, goodness. So it sounds like you're helping them in a very big way with, hey, you guys are going to bed tonight. The rest of the team's going to stay up, and we're going to rally up for getting ready for tomorrow. Is there other ways that you help them with these considerations or through that particular process?
So during the trial, I know from my own experience, they will show crime scene photos.
Right.
And so going into a trial, I would say, okay, here's the point where we're going to show crime scene photos. I know you can't unsee them. I regret the moment I was in a courtroom and saw some. So we wanted to remove them. So Pam and Danny, their daughter, left the room, but John stayed in, and a friend of his, Emily, stayed in the courtroom. Usually I try to give them a heads up, but there's so much going on, John. You're thinking of getting the exhibits up. You're thinking of the jurors, and you're trying to do what the attorney wants. And a picture went up, and it was one of the worst. It was one of the worst moments because he's laying dead on the bed. and Emily, who's sitting not right next to me, she was one person over from the video guy, reacted and ran out of the courtroom crying.
Mm.
And then I thought, oh, oops, that was awful. And also, you've got John. This is his son.
Yeah.
That's a moment that you can't take back. And I look up, so he was looking down, turned away, and the son that's still alive is behind him. He reaches out to comfort his dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is on every level for every person in the courtroom was horrible.
Right.
You can't get people ready for those moments, but you try to get them ready for testifying. You try to get them ready for what's going to happen next. And you're always asked, how do you think the jury's doing? I was terrible at reading the jury. That's not my area. I have a jury consultant that wasn't able to come up, and I called her afterwards and I said, I can't pick juries because I couldn't read this one at all. Danielle, did you read them?
I read about half of them. I knew we had half of them. I knew from jury selection who was eventually probably going to be the foreman. Three of them I knew we had. I felt good about having them, but that's only half of six. So, it's still, they did their job and they did an amazing job. I have nothing but, commending them for the position that they had.
Now, what was it like? I mean, I know both of you have been working this case for years at this point, and me as in my work, I'm looking at a very far lens of these people and into very specific aspects of their lives. What's it like sitting in there with Brenda in the same room? Is this someone, because, my perception is, oh, wow, this is like a terrible person. This is someone that did something very awful. But I know that there's a human around that. I know she's remarried. I know she's a mother. What is your feeling when you're sitting in the room with someone like that? Is it literally the same as my initial assumption, looking at the far off lens?
Do you want me to answer that, Danielle, or do you want to start?
We both can answer that, but go ahead.
So I did the undercover thing. So I had a different perspective from the beginning with her. She is probably one of the best manipulators I've ever seen. Okay. I realize what she's doing, and sympathy for her, zero. Sympathy for anything surrounding her, zero. Because she goes home to her family, children, husband, in-laws that were sitting next to me, and she has her life.
Yeah.
Bruce's family goes home and their son is still dead. So 206 million doesn't mean anything other than their son is dead, and she goes on living her life. And, I think PTA, is she going to be the president of the PTA meetings? I mean, she gets to go on and do whatever she wants.
Right.
No, I have no sympathy.
Yep. How was it for you, Danielle, being in that room?
I was sitting because I was right behind the attorneys helping with exhibits. So she was maybe, her husband was just one chair away from me, and Brenda was about 3 to 4 feet at any time, and no emotion, not once. She was on the stand for an hour and a half and didn't shed one tear. So I thought, you can plead the fifth, but you can still show emotion. And she was just stone faced for 4 days. So
yeah. One of the first comments that I had for Sheila coming off that is, being the husband, like, how do you sleep at home at night? Like, after that type of, I mean, it's mind blowing. I don't know how I deal with it.
So during the trial, there would be breaks. And I think one of the reporters spoke about it. He made sure anytime someone was filming in the hallway or something, he would block her. So he was very protective. And that's what I noticed when I went undercover, how they protected her.
Mm-hmm.
He also spent one entire break, John, where he hugged her through the entire break. Now, how ironic is that? That's what started all of this. And there he is hugging his wife. And there is a comment from the reporter saying a spectator rolled their eyes. That was me. I was like, are you kidding me? Have a little respect for where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. But I also imagine that there's got to be a belief structure within that household of, this drummed up charge, this thing that I didn't really do, and oh, now I've been found guilty. Like there has to be some belief structure
Yeah, I
along
don't
those
think
lines.
so. I don't think so anymore. Sorry, I
Yeah.
interrupted,
Well,
but they saw a good enough amount of evidence. The mother-in-law was sitting next to me. She leaned in to read the text messages. They heard on a deposition that Jason, her son, doesn't have anything to worry about because Brenda doesn't love him as much as she loved Jonathan.
oh, wow.
That was in the trial.
Wow. Wow. Speaking of moments like that, is there a particular moment from the courtroom that really stands out for you?
I think it's probably both well, maybe not. So the defense attorney did not allow us to show Jonathan at the beginning, at the opening. We had put together a video for the jurors to meet him because you're deliberating on a person you don't know.
Yeah.
So the defense attorney refused to allow us to show family pictures and things like that. So when the mom, Pam Cruz, got up on the stand, she called it a low blow, the mom, Pam, but it turns out fine. I had them run a video that they put together for Jonathan's memorial. And it was 4 minutes long. And they put all the pictures they loved for 4 minutes. She watched it before she testified. That moment, you met Jonathan, you met his mother, and you understood the loss.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Danielle, what was yours?
I have two big moments. The first was when Emily, John's best friend, was on the stand, and Tom, the plaintiff's attorney, the Cruz attorney, had her stand up and point to Brenda. And that to me was extremely powerful, knowing that Jonathan probably died because of his friendship with Emily. That was a moment for me. And the second moment was during closing arguments. And, again, Attorney Shaw had told the jury, you may be able to save another life. So, yeah. I don't know. That was it. Both of those were very powerful to me.
Yeah. Do I remember right? Was Tom Shaw? He's been part of this for all this time, right?
He's the reason I did the case.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And that's the thing that families don't realize. The attorneys matter. Mm-hmm. You need to get somebody like Tom who will put in the hours. I've worked other cases. I don't know too many attorneys that stay up till 1, 2 in the morning the night before they have to get on, in front of a jury.
Yeah.
I'll work with him any day.
So Danielle, it sounds like you became a target for the defense at some point. You want to tell us about that?
Again, my first rodeo with court. So there was a moment during, can I say who was testifying, Sheila?
Yeah. It was hilarious.
So Jonathan's sister, Danny, was testifying on Thursday. And, I felt a lot of stares on me. There was Brenda's attorney had a paralegal at the table with him, and she kept turning and looking at me and just staring. And I'm like, what's going on? All of a sudden, there's a sidebar. So the two attorneys and the judge are up at the sidebar. And again, they all turn around and look at me. I'm like, what's going on? He tried to say that I was tampering with the witness, that I was giving signals to Danny, who I
Our
could barely see, but yeah.
And she's our own witness, John.
Yeah, you could have talked to her.
Your-
Yeah, you don't need to. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Did they explain what the signals were?
No.
Did you have an itchy nose, or like? I mean, like what?
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It's
Yeah.
a defense tactic that's used that most judges like this one see through it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You
Yeah, and
know,
it might have just been about breaking up the flow. Like Danny might have just been winning over the hearts of the jury, and it's like, uh-oh, we need to pause this for a second just to shift the energy of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Danielle's a good target. I mean, you could tell she's sweet, she's nice, she sits there very quietly.
Right,
I
right.
her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Is there a particular moment that you think stood out for the jurors?
I know I do.
Was there like a gotcha moment in the courtroom, like we expect from a television version?
Yes, our expert, when he talked about the gun position and how it was branded on Jonathan. So when we did PI experience, we hadn't done all the forensic for Pharaoh and things like that.
Right.
So now, 8.5 years later, we have all the documentation, all the science, and we're able to present that. And I think the position of the gun is it.
So
yeah, the position of the gun and the animation, the 5 videos on how, again, using the trajectory and the Pharaoh, that we believe that this happened. It's people are visual. They might not understand GSR and bloodstain pattern analysis, but they can see how trajectory works. So
yeah.
to me, that was very powerful.
Yeah. Mm. And how long did the jury deliberate?
3 hours.
Wow. So it sounds like that conversation, you didn't have half of them on one side and half on the other. They might have had one person that had some questions and kind of worked through it.
Well, I think if I were on a jury, I'd want to read her text messages.
Yeah. Yeah. So what has been going through this whole process been like for you? I mean, Sheila, when did you get started with this?
8.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been there right from the beginning. If there was one word to sum this up, what's that word?
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean, here we are. We're so happy to have a verdict like this, but really, why are we here? Why didn't the DA do his job or her job back then? Why didn't the police do their job? Why are they not doing their job? Why did we have to fight and serve subpoenas right before the trial started? Why are we still fighting for this family when people that are paid to do their job are not doing their job?
Yeah. And if I remember right, even the first investigator in thought that this was a foul play situation.
It is a foul play.
Yeah.
Investigation.
But that's just mind blowing that, from the start, the first one in is like, yeah, there's something wrong here. What about for you, Danielle? What's this experience been like?
It's again, the Cruz family has had my heart. So it, like Sheila said, at the end of the day, he's still not here. So you're on an emotional roller coaster of lows and highs again, and he's still not here.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The person that brought us together, Jonathan, who I've made friends with his friends, some of the nicest text messages and comments I've gotten are from his close friends. He's the reason we even know each other, and he's not here.
Right. Yeah, it's strange that a whole like that winds up bringing people together in a very unique way. And I also just want to say that I think it's amazing that you ladies have been there for the family. for everything that they've been going through. And Sheila, for you to even recognize like, oh, wow, like my presence around certain family members is troublesome for them, to understand that they might need distance from that. It takes a real special type of person, I think, to appreciate and to know how to handle those situations. And I'm just really thankful that they had you to go through this. I wish more families in similar situations had a team like we see here around Jonathan. So I know a big part of taking this route of going with a civil trial is you get discovery. You get to ask questions, you get to do more research, and kind of maybe in the back of your mind, you're hoping that might lead somewhere else. Do you think that there was compelling new information found that should be considered for criminal charges?
Yes. So, number one, we didn't get to show the entire case to a jury.
Okay.
So we have a whole bunch of information. The second thing is because of the case, we were able to get subpoenas to file. Now, John, we had filed subpoenas before
Right.
and they were completely ignored, by the way. And so now we have people showing up at the trial bringing us documentation. Danielle had, and this is another lesson Danielle learned during the trial. Danielle had called the laboratory because of another one of our cases, and she got information that they basically had lied to us years ago. And they did the stuff they said that they didn't have or do. And so we subpoenaed it. Danielle got to serve her first subpoena, which was, I don't know, Danielle, don't you feel good about that subpoena?
I really don't feel good about who I served it to because I held them to a different standard. And that day that we were there with the subpoena, really it gave me a bad taste in my mouth on you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
so when you get a case file, you might think you have everything.
And you don't.
Good chance you don't.
And the behavior of the people we served, I brought Pam, I called Pam and told her to meet us down there because I wanted them to look at the mother they denied. And this woman was so incredibly rude. I will be talking about her forever because she is the reason that you look at these cases and you're like, how do you sleep at night? Is it power that you have to deny these families? But it's your job. You had a subpoena in 2016 and you denied this family, and you're acting like a bitch, and you can keep that in there to this mother.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I always fear that in some of these cases you run into people in those positions and it's like, oh, it's easier for me to not go that way with the work. It's easier for me to not provide that. Because imagine if I do, imagine all the other stuff that I'm gonna have to do along with that. You'd hope that people that take these positions that are involved in justice in some way are coming from a different spot. But I've worked in companies before where I'm like, there's some people like they're just not good. They're just not good at their job. They're not here for the right reason, or they're just here for a paycheck, or
Can I say what I think? I think that the way she acted and the way it's going to come out, because you don't think I'm going to FOIA that moment because they have videotape of it.
mhm.
And it's going to cause them a lot more work because it will be my poster for everything that I do. She has become my poster child for everything that we fight. And I have people that say all the time, you've got to be really nice to them. Really? They had a subpoena in 2016. How about following a subpoena?
Right.
I have to, you have to, Danielle has to, but the Southwest Medical, what is it called? Southwest Institute for Forensic Science doesn't have to. They didn't.
Unbelievable. So the family goes through this. Obviously, we know that money isn't a focus for them. Are they really content at this point, knowing the decision, knowing that there was a jury that took their side in terms of this argument? And is that it? Or is this a step towards more that they're looking for?
I think it got the attention of the district attorney. I don't know how it couldn't. I know that they're grateful to the attorney, and I know that John, you don't understand you're just a few days after this.
Yeah.
So the process, and they have people reaching out to them. Throughout this process, I'm sure that people doubted their quest for the truth. And I know I was walking to the bathroom and I heard someone on the phone saying, well, there's compelling evidence that he did not commit suicide. Really? So you're at the trial, you're supporting the family, but you weren't sure. So think about that. How many people dropped out from being around him? I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot when there's a death of a child. You don't know how to react. You don't know if you should talk about them or not. So there's a lot of considerations. I know that when I come off of a trial or something like that, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to be with my husband. That's it. I don't want to talk to the family. So they probably just wanted to be with themselves. And they knew I needed time because, I put so much into their world, and then it's done. And then what do you do?
Right.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Is it over? Danielle, I don't know how you felt. I know you know how I felt.
It took, I know Sheila and I up until yesterday to be able to form a sentence. It was that sheer exhaustion from, the emotions and the 20-hour work days and the travel. We just wanted to be with our families and just sleep or relax. She had said, well, let's record our podcast yesterday. This was yesterday. Let's record our podcast. I'm like, Sheila, we can't even form a complete sentence. Who knows what's going to come out of our mouths? It's getting better, but it's just exhaustion, and the highs and the lows. It takes a toll.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of danced around it a little bit, but where does the chance of criminal charges being filed, where does that sit right now?
I think it's very good. What district attorney who's elected, they're elected, who wouldn't take an easy win?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Sheila, you've been quoted as saying, this is always, here comes a quote. I don't do gotcha journalism here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
You've been quoted as saying, this has always been about telling the story of what happened to Jonathan. And do you feel like that is now complete, or do you think that there's more to be said about this?
There's a lot more to be said. All the evidence was not shown in court. The most compelling evidence, it's a simple case, but it wasn't all told. So we have a lot to say. We have a lot to teach families like you do on how to go about it, because there are so many.
Yeah.
John, there are so many.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm dealing with a case out here that I've been talking about on the channel a lot lately, the case of Elisa Gomez. Pretty much the same question. Did someone take their own life versus did someone else take it? What advice do you have for families that are facing those types of tough situations, Sheila? How do they get through this?
Well, you have to have a support system. And I will say that the people that showed up from following my cases at the trial, they were incredible, encouraging the family. They were amazing human beings. There were other mothers that have lost theirs through similar situations that were there. You have to develop a community. And that's what it took. It wasn't just me. It was an entire community that I've tapped into to investigate. It wasn't just one lawyer. It was a lawyer and his team of people. It wasn't just one mom. It was people rallying around the mom. It's everybody working together for the same goal. And it's not about justice. It's about truth.
Very well said. Very well said. So you were talking about recording a podcast episode yesterday. What show was that for?
Mine, Without Warning.
There we go. Without Warning. You can hear more from Sheila. You're going to be talking about this case there?
We're going to talk about the trial.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely. We're going to kind of give a day by day, situation of what happened and what comes up, because I always want to teach people what you're going to go through. And it's not for the weak at heart, because it is a hard road and there are people that can't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Danielle, for the new PI? Are you taking on your own cases yet? You just working on Sheila's? What's the future hold for you?
I am working with Sheila's, and we have several right now in a couple different states, and every day is different, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
When you get the PI experience starring Danielle, let me know, because I'm coming to that one also.
It won't be the PI experience, John, but it'll be out there.
It'll be something. I know that. I know I'm buying a ticket. Ladies, thank you both so much for joining us here today. I'm going to have a link to Without Warning in the description box down below for you guys to check out. And just know that this is a really amazing community. You're really seeing it firsthand here. These people that are connected, that just care about others and work together and in a prolonged effort. This thing has been going on for years. We've been talking about the Jonathan Cruz case for years. There's a lot of conversations that go on in the background that you guys don't even know about around all these people. But I'm just so thankful to be a part of it. And I'm so thankful that groups like this happen and that they're able to share these experiences with other people that might be facing similar situations. So thank you guys for being a part of that group yourselves. We'll see you again here on the Lord Nards channel.